This is the Cinema Technologies presentation by Ben Seiger and Shirlei Domingues. So why are we studying cinema technologies? Well, a typical feature-length motion picture costs millions of dollars to make and requires the skills of hundreds of people. So we're talking about a technology that has a lot of people involved and a lot of money. The global movie industry continues to see huge growth, fueled by these big blockbuster films, and it raises the income and technological innovations. So we have movies making more money, more people more interested in more movies, and better technologies coming from the access of funds. So the new digital cinema that we are using is changing everything that has to do with how movies are made, from the production to post-production to distribution of movies. And just to emphasize how much money is involved, we have a box office that topped 10 million in 2011 and 11 billion, sorry, I think I said million, 10 billion in 2011 and 11 billion in 2015 in revenue, which is crazy. It's a lot of money. So, and also a reason we study cinema technologies is it functions as a social institution, providing a form of social contact desired by citizens immersed in a world of mass culture. So, like, you have people learning about different ways people can be, even if it's a little glorified, and it creates this mass culture phenomena in our society. It also exists as a psychological institution whose purpose is to encourage the movie-going habit by providing the kind of entertainment desired by popular culture. Kind of the same thing as the last point. The people fuel the cinema fuels the people. It just keeps collecting more and more momentum. So nowadays it's remarkable how our culture has created and consumes media. It's really fascinating. That's why we study cinema technologies. So let's talk about how cinema came to be. It really began when Hannibal Goodwin used the first celluloid. And a celluloid is a coating of light-sensitive chemicals allowing film to pass through a camera and take photos in rapid succession. And that's how you emulate movement. This is what made motion pictures possible. It's flexible, it goes through the camera fast enough. So following that, Thomas Edison used this technology to create the kinetoscope and then open kinetoscope parlors in New York. And these were kind of like arcades in a sense. They were coin operated. So you put the coin in, you look in your viewfinder, only one person could see these things at a time. The Lumiere brothers took it a step farther and were able to create motion pictures that were projected so multiple people could see them, and they began screening in Paris using their cinematograph in 1895. Now, an important guy to highlight here at the beginning of the film invention is Méliès. He developed a lot of really awesome early special effects and camera tricks, and this was because he was a magician before he was interested in film. Now, you might not have heard of this guy, but I am sure that at least some of you have seen a still from his movie A Trip to the Moon. It's that weird moon face that gets like a rocket ship shot in his eye, and it's super black and white and old school, but definitely memorable. So in '86, Edison, to counter Lumiere's screenings being able to be seen by multiple people, he has the Vitascope, which popularized large screen film in the US. So skip forward a little ways, and we have the 1920s. At this point, film is starting to really gather a lot of momentum. And we have 5 major studios that really dominated the film industry. They were called the Big Five. It's Paramount, Warner, MGM, 20th Century Fox, and Radio K RKM. They achieved this early fast success by not only creating the movies, but they owned their own theaters as well. So by doing this, they saved money on having to sell their movies to another theater, as it is today. And this is called vertical integration, where they had control of all 3 levels of movie production and distribution, which is production, post-production, distribution. Some other highlightable cinema history is in 1947, the Cold War was unfolding, and the HUAC, which is the House Un-American Activities Committee, began a witch hunt for communist supporters in the film industry. And the HUAC would go to prominent people in film names to name names. And it got way out of hand. For example, people were tagged for being sympathetic to Indians or quote-unquote colored folk, for making fun of financially well-off white people. And as I was talking about earlier, how studios owned their own theaters, in 1949, the Paramount decision, which was a Supreme Court decision between Paramount and the court, it forced the studios to divest themselves from their own theaters in a way to create more competition in the market. It kind of succeeded, but not really. We still have the powerhouse studios. So, some of the more recent developments, and it's interesting because it's very difficult to find a blockbuster type movie that is a movie designated to be large scale and a big budget production. It's difficult to find a blockbuster within the last decade that did not employ CGI or computer generated imagery. For the last long time, but it did have its start, and people have been interested in it since 1890s, when it was discovered that if you run film twice through a camera, it produced unusual, like, double exposures. So that was kind of like the beginning of some of the more crazy effects, not like what Méliès was doing, which was camera tricks. But we can talk about the Andromeda Strain, which was the first movie to ever have a computer generate an effect for it. It was just a simple 2-dimensional rotating structure on one level. The first time it was used in an American international picture was in a film called Future World. And it was like a generated hand and face, nothing too crazy. George Lucas, as made famous by his film series Star Wars, has a company called Industrial Light and Magic, and they took a big step forward for CGI when they rendered a 3D wireframe view of the Death Star trench, depicted as training aid for the Rebel pilots. So, like, I don't know how many of you have seen Star Wars. There's the part where the plans are given to the rebels from R2-D2, and the Death Star pops up, and it's like a green wireframe. That's what we're talking about here. Wrath of Khan, Star Trek, incorporated a 1-minute effect created by Pixar, and it's cinema's first all-computer generated visual effects shot. So in Star Wars we had it superimposed. This was all computer generated. And then further into the future we have Tron, which actually had the first full 20-minute live-action CGI scene, and it was groundbreaking and awesome. Still one of my favorite movies. So in 1985, Lucasfilm with Pixar, they created one of the first fully photorealistic CGI character in a full-length feature with the sword-wielding medieval stained glass knight composed of window pieces that came to life when he jumped out of the window frame in young Sherlock Holmes. Pretty cool. I'm glad that Lucasfilm and Pixar work together, because both are outstanding in their fields. Skip ahead 10 years, we have Toy Story. And this was the first full-length feature that was completely CGI animated, which was a pretty big deal, and also had a pretty big impact on cinema, because we have a bunch of Pixar movies now that are all blockbusters in a sense. So in the early 2000s we had the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where the main character was created with a combination of motion picture performances and keyframe techniques by using a motion capture suit with sensors recording the movements of the actor. So that's those like little white dots, the white dot suits that you see, and we're talking about Golem here, of course. So what the guy did, the actor, he wore this black suit with white dots. These were the sensors, and he moved around, and it created a wireframe for the main character. Pretty huge advancement. And the next year, the movie The Polar Express, they used that same exact motion, but for every actor, which is incredible to think about. So they're all real actors moving in Polar Express, but it's a CGI rendering of them. So in 2009 we have Avatar, which came out, and this was when we made our first large computer generated three-dimensional film, 3D film, where you have those goofy glasses on. It used new technologies and CGI to capture facial expressions, and fusion camera system for 3D shooting, and the Simucam for blending real-time shoots with CGI characters and environments. So the current status of what we're working with here in the cinema technologies is the cost of tickets are always on the rise, and this is because CGI is becoming more and more prevalent, and also the way that movies are filmed and presented are becoming more and more specialized. So theaters have to have new speakers and screens and projectors installed, and unfortunately those aren't free, and that's what helps raise the cost of the tickets to cinema. But it's important nonetheless, because if theaters are not on par with the media that they are showing, if they don't have the technology to play these 3D generated environments, say in Avatar, then who's going to go see it? So some of the really cool new statuses that are coming out, and have come out, I should say, with cinema technologies are we have IMAX now that have lasers, um, and instead of using like a standard projector light, they use lasers to superimpose the image on the screen, and it makes the bright stuff brighter, the dark stuff darker, as well as keeps the images sharper. The laser also, it doesn't burn out as fast as a bulb, and it saves theaters lots of money on buying new bulbs. So we also have smaller, more portable cameras, and this one's more for the production part, but it allows filmmakers to go places that they may not have previously been able to go, or just possible. One movie I know that utilized a smaller camera, and that was a cinematic success in a sense, was the movie Shirlei, where the guy was walking or running through like wetlands and rainforest with this just handheld camera filming a lot of the movie, which you couldn't be able to do with older technologies, much heavier and just clunky. So also in theaters we have a more realistic audio experience. This is like talking about next level surround sounds and 3D sounds. We have speakers that just have, or theaters that just have obscene amount of speakers that are multi-directional. We also have the ability to film and watch movies on phones and tablets. Oops, sorry, I skipped that one. But this opens up the technology to more people, to let people watch movies on the go, and viewers control, and they're able to film their own movies. It becomes more readily available to the public, and it was kind of a humbling experience when you try to make your own movie. We also have interactive movie screens, which are really awesome and not very widespread, but I know of one at the University of Utah. It's kind of more of a video game, but it's a big screen that's, or a big plane that's being projected on, that the walker, because it's on the ground, walks on it and it makes drips and whatnot. But I do know that there is also interactive movies where the viewer actually controls major plot points, kind of like the Choose Your Own Adventure books. We also have second screen experience ads, which are pretty nifty. I'm not a big fan of them myself, but they are apps that contribute to the movie. So while you're watching the movie, you can pull this app up and it will have trivia and stills and videos that sync with what's happening on the screen, probably behind the scenes stuff. Pretty neat. We also have better 3D viewing experience. This is somewhat of an older technology, I guess, in a sense, but we have these lenticular lens glasses instead of like the blue and red ones, and what they are lenses that that redirect light to each eye from the screen. So it allows you to process two different images at the same time, because you're only seeing part of the light through each eye, and that's where the self-correction happens. So if you're, I don't know if anybody listening is a sailor or a fisherman, but this is what allows polarized sunglasses to block the sun's reflection off the water. Just like the lenticular lens allows light, the polarized sunglasses denies the light. So some factors to watch, some cinema technologies that are probably most likely going to happen or are already happening. and being applied. We have the 4K digital media. So 4K is the resolution of the image or film. It refers to pixel dimensions. So I don't know if when you're looking at YouTube, you see that little gear and you click it and it says like 240, 3 something, 720, 1080. Well, now there's starting to be videos that come out that have the 2000, 4000, and even occasionally an 8000. And this is just how detailed it is, and essentially how much bigger of a file it is too, because it's got that much more information. So that's something to look out for in film. We also have solid state drives being used for the production sense of films and for Ultra HD films, and these are the big films, these 4K media films and 8K media films. What's great about solid state drives is they're fast to save a large amount of data, and they also load just as fast because there's no moving parts. It's all electrical. And you're able to move these large amounts of data, which is exactly what Ultra HD movies are. Saving time previously used on saving and loading allows for a faster timeline from production to finish to distribution. We also have cloud networking, something that us as classmates are familiar with because it's kind of what we use to communicate our information to each other, but filmmakers and crews are now capitalizing on the capabilities of the cloud and allows people to work with others from all over the world by allowing anytime, anywhere access to what is on the cloud. You can work with people in Japan while in Kentucky instantly. It cuts down on incredible amounts of time. One of the next things that we should look out for is these where did we go? Oh no. Here we are. HFRs, which are higher frame rates. So this one has been a little less well received, but it definitely deserves attention. The standard frame rate when working with movable film is 24 frames per second, and the frame is one of the still pictures on the roll of film. So you're having 24 pictures flashed at you per second. Digital filming, though, it lets filmmakers boost the frames per second to as high as 96, I've seen. The problem is that moviegoers are used to the standard 24 frames per second, and when they're exposed, or when they have been exposed to the HFR, the high frame rates, like The Hobbit, when that first came out, the reviews were the film seemed visually off. It was blurry or plasticky or weirdly sped up. So it just didn't catch the eye of the viewer as well, because they're just not used to it, you know? Then we have the plenoptic camera. The plenoptic camera is pretty cool. Yeah, the plenoptic camera, it's pretty neat. It records multiple different angles of an object at the same time by using multiple lenses. Thus, you get a better three-dimensional feel for what you're filming with it. It upgrades your 3D shots. It's pretty cool. So, like, in The Matrix, they had to use a series of multiple cameras on a track in order to get some of those shots where they pan around. Now, the plenoptic mirror is just is more efficient than that. It can record multiple angles at once, and it's just one camera. So, in conclusion, why we want to study cinema technologies is, well, as a sense, cinema, it just keeps growing and finds new ways to present itself to the masses, and it doesn't really show signs of stopping. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And also, there are lots of new innovations in technology that happen in cinema. So that's reason enough to just watch it and see what's going on and study it. The and it also has a huge impact on culture and social media and just society in general. So let's do a quiz. So our first question, what was the primary reason for the Big Five? What was the primary reason the Big Five rose to domination in the film industry? The second question, what are two factors as to why movie ticket prices are rising? Alright, that's good enough time. The reason that the Big Five rose to domination in the film industry was they owned all their own theaters, so they kept all the profits from ticket sales as well. And the two factors as to why movie ticket prices are rising, CGI cost and upgrading the theater. New speakers, new projectors, lasers, all the fun stuff. Thank you everybody for watching it. I know it was a long one. Have a great day and good night.